The following podcast contains strong language.
Hello, and welcome back to the Ciné Rambles podcast. You're listening to Nick.
And Andrew.
And we're back once again with your fortnightly fix of film-related ramblings.
Yeah, we're back, bitches.
Yeah. Finally, with this spooky Halloween episode.
Yes, very spooky.
To celebrate the Halloween tradition, we'll be talking about precisely one scary thing today, and then continue as normal. Because really, that's the scary thing, is the surprise element, where you would expect us to talk solely about horror. We are subverting that expectation.
Let's start with, there's a TV show, Nick, called Surgeon at the Edge of Life.
Is that with a colon after surgeon?
Yes.
Or is it a surgeon who is at the edge of his life? Like standing on a building?
No, so it's Surgeon : at the Edge of Life. I think that was called. It was called something like that. Anyway, I think it was on the BBC. Basically, it was about like the tippy top neurosurgeons in the NHS, and in like extreme, excruciating detail, going through the surgeries they do to save people's lives.
Right. And
it was the most gripping show I've ever watched in my life. Which is weird because, you know, there's no like music, there's no purposeful tension building. It's just, this is the surgery. They do like some talking head interviews with the surgeons, like, this is what we're going to do. And then they, in layman's terms, because obviously it's mostly brain surgery.
Not exactly rocket science, is it?
Well, yeah, I'm literally just going to say it. Yep. But yeah, so they dumb it down. Well, they don't want to say dumb it down, but they make it something that's obviously taken decades of study easy to understand,
Yeah.
So this, for example, in the episode I watched, this guy had a brain tumour, and they were like, okay, so this is operable, but we have to operate now, because if it grows any bigger, he's just gonna fucking die. And it's like, okay, so we have to drill through his skull, like past his ear, and like past his eardrum, and like there's this tiny nerve connecting his eardrum to his brain that controls the entire left side of his face. And if we touch that or damage it in any way, he will no longer be able to use the left side of his face, and he won't be able to hear out of his left ear. And it's like, we have to go past that with a drill and then perform the surgery to cut out this tumour.
Well, if they get it wrong, at least he'll be all right.
Fucking hell. Jesus Christ, that's a new low.
I was quite proud of that one.
And it's like, there's so many things that could go wrong. And this guy could literally die if they don't do it, or if they get it wrong, they could cripple him. There was also a chance, if they cut too much away, they'll start taking bits of his brain off, and that will fuck him up even more, because also it was right next to his central nervous system.
Yeah,
it's like if they take that, he could lose feeling in his whole body. And it was like, there was just so much on the line, and it is real life. And it was just gripping. And the other thing was, they show you everything. It's really gory. Like, they literally show you the inside of a man's face. They show you as this surgeon is drilling into his skull. And it was fascinating. It was gripping. It was so, intense. And, they've got these talking heads of the surgeons explaining it. And they're like, this is a 12-hour surgery. And the surgeons can't stop, because if they stop, the man will die. And it's like a tag team, so they have a guy who drills into the guy's skull for 6 hours, and then the other bloke jumps in and then starts cutting out the tumour. And it was very, 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 very good. Bit horrific because of the gore, but
That's the great thing about documentary, really, is that it's sometimes the most thrilling stories you can come up with are stuff that happens in real life.
yeah, it was really, really good because it was just like, I don't know, it shook me because I was just like, fuck me, this guy could literally die on screen, And
The thing of that, though, is like, obviously they must film lots of patients,
yeah,
and then the ones which don't make it, they're like, we won't use that one.
yeah, but I don't know, I probably wouldn't have shown him actually dying on screen.
Yeah, that's getting into public obscenity laws.
But they might have showed, oh, this guy didn't make it, But it was so interesting because, like, never before, you watch all these horror films or action films or whatever, and, there's some of them are very, very good at building tension, obviously. But the stakes in this were so high, and this man is real. He's a real, actual human being. He's not an actor. And I just think it really, really got me, and it was like, this is fucking great. This is very, very, very good TV.
Have you ever seen Supervet?
I have watched bits of Supervet, yeah.
Just because that reminds me of that. I mean, obviously it's with animals instead of humans.
Yeah.
That's got a similar element where they go really into detail to surgery, both like showing the process of it and explaining, like, as you said, like complicated stuff in a layman way.
Yeah.
But also what I liked about that was like you get given these animals with like seemingly like life-ending problems, just like literally cannot walk or like, really badly disfigured.
Yeah, and he sorts them out.
Yeah, and he just comes up with these genius solutions to fix them, like properly thinking outside the box and like all these new kind of like, prosthetics and metal stuff.
Yeah, I watched one where this cow had this eye that instead of being spherical, it was a cylinder.
Oh.
So the eye was like 3 inches long, and it was like popping out the cow's face, and he was just like, "We just got to take it out, and that cow's just gonna have one eye." And it was just very interesting because, like, oh, that eye is pushing on its brain and causing it pain, and it's really freaky looking and weird. And all the other cows don't like him because of that.
Well, he would.
Well, yeah. And then he sorted the cow out, and the cow was happy.
I mean, as happy as you can be with one eye.
Well, yeah. Anyway, that was Surgeon at the Edge of Life.
Well, there's a TV recommendation this week.
So, the other day, me and Georgia watched Mission Impossible 4.
Oh, yes.
It's pretty good. Mission Impossible, the second trilogy, as I like to call it.
Yeah, it's essentially the first of a reboot, really. Like,
yeah.
It's almost its own franchise.
In its own way, yeah. Like 4, 5, and 6 are definitely separate from 1, 2, and 3. It's good. It's not as good. 5, Rogue Nation, really, really took me by surprise because I went into that film thinking it would be absolute dog shit, and then came out of it like, fuck me, that film was very entertaining and very good. Yeah. And then exactly the same thing happened with Fallout, but better. Like the last 30 minutes of Fallout were awesome.
Yeah, like I remember the like basically the entire third act of Fallout is like almost like textbook great action sort of filmmaking. Like it just all builds very well.
Yeah, very, very, very good.
I will say I enjoyed Rogue Nation, which is the only one I've seen, I believe. But
yeah, that's number 5.
I can't remember. Like I remember sort of individual flashes of it, like the beginning with the plane, and something to do with them having to go through like a flooded chamber in the heist.
The flooding chamber, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't remember like the broad strokes of it. But I do remember enjoying it, but I don't think it left much of an impression.
Right. Because I think the reason that film stuck with me is because I just watched Spectre, because they came out in the same year, I think.
Oh, yeah.
I'd just seen Spectre, and Spectre disappointed me so much. I had such high hopes for Spectre, and Spectre was such unbelievably dog shit that I then went on to see Rogue Nation being like, oh, this is just going to be the same thing, but American. And then when it was genuinely entertaining, genuinely good, genuinely better written than fucking James Bond was, it was just everything I wanted James Bond to be, but with Tom Cruise. And I was like, this is great. This is very enjoyable. I think that's why that one has stuck with me so much, because it was just so much better than I was expecting. Anyway, this is past the point. So in Mission Impossible 4, we watched it on Netflix. So it's on Netflix. And I don't know if you've noticed this. So in the film, there's some Russians, and the Russians talk Russian. It's shocking.
Right. That's some great writing there.
Really, really, really got under my skin is Netflix have started censoring subtitles.
What?
And there is no way for you to turn that censor off. So obviously these Russians are like, I think, it's the line is like, where is the motherfucker or something like that, and they censor motherfucker. And it's like, if you were Russian or spoke Russian, they didn't censor it in real life, but they censored the subtitles.
So wait, isn't Mission Impossible 4 a 12 rating?
Yes, I think so.
Oh, so was that their one use of fuck, or were there others?
Yeah, that was their one use, and it was in Russian, and Netflix still censored it.
That's weird, because I was gonna propose, is it definitely Netflix? Like, is the film on other platforms?
No, it is, because I then looked this up, and other people on Reddit had been complaining about it, and there was a deaf guy, and he was saying, like, I have to watch everything with subtitles, and it's babying me, like, he's a 25-year-old man, and they're not letting him see swear words because, oh no, they're naughty, even if the fucking TV show he's watching is an 18, with death and violence and all the swearing you like, but because he's deaf, he's not allowed to see the swear words. And it's completely stupid. It's unnecessary censorship. I would understand if the swear word was censored in the show, like bleeped out, if they then bleeped it in the subtitles, fair enough. But it's not. And it doesn't make any sense.
That's the thing, like, if it made it through the original, like, censor screening or whatever for cinema release and was deemed fine, it should be fine. You shouldn't be able to meddle with it past that point, I feel.
Yeah.
Like, if you're gonna start trying to censor things, do it on that original examination and then leave it. Then it's done. But also, it's coming back to the whole thing about, like, language being, like, the worst possible thing. It's just reminds me of, like, when we watched La Haine. When I've watched it several times, this probably is in a lot of versions, but certainly when we watched it at sixth form on the DVD copy we had, there's a bit where I can't remember their names, but one of the main characters, he graffitis "fuck the police" on the wall.
Yeah.
But in French. And it's really clear that that's what it is, but the subtitles say, "Screw the police." But the thing is, they say fuck plenty of times in the film, and it's not censored in the subtitles at all. It's just that one time, and it's like, what do you do? It's already a 15. What's wrong with you? Why is this one, even though "fuck the police" is like a really famous phrase, why are you suddenly censoring it?
And it's from the song.
Yeah.
From the, when he does the mixing.
Yeah, exactly. It's just bizarre. So I was watching a YouTube video earlier. It was sort of like chronicling the history of slasher films and stuff. And it's like got plenty of clips from these like 18 rated films, lots of gory shots and blood in there. But they had to censor their swearing because it's on YouTube. Because, YouTube allows clips from gory 18 rated horror films. But if you say shit, don't know about that. We're going to have to demonetize it.
YouTube is obviously an absolute cesspit, but Netflix, just why? It's just such a baffling decision because it's...
I thought Netflix was normally quite good.
But it's so half-baked, And some pricks obviously had to go through... Well, it's probably an algorithm, isn't it? Just to find all fucks in the subtitle and get rid of it. I was going to say,
how is it subtitled? Is it asterisked out, or is it like redacted, like on SCP, or is
No, so it's like... replaced, so if it was fuck, it would be F ! ## at like that kind of thing. Comic book swearing.
Yeah.
Which
not
is
a fan of that.
No. But just Oh, it's fucking stupid.
I think that's the perfect way to sum it up.
Yeah.
It's like South Park said it best. You can have all the gratuitous bloody violence you like as long as you don't say shit.
Yep.
Actually, I have got something I wouldn't mind talking about quickly.
Go on.
So, still working at the cinema at the moment, for those listening.
Yep.
We've had a new film in recently called After We Collided.
What?
Now, this is... You probably already know where I'm going with this. This is the second film in the I guess After series, following the first film titled After. Which is a pretty weak title. Also, for those wondering, the third film, I've looked this up, the third film is going to be called After We Fell.
Okay.
And the fourth film is called After Ever Happy.
After what?
As in Happy Ever After, but because all the films are called after something, they've reversed it.
After
And I feel
Ever Happy.
Some prick was very proud of that.
Tessa finds herself struggling with her complicated relationship with Hardin. She faces a dilemma that could change their lives forever.
So, the main thing about this film, like on the surface, this looks like just like a really generic kind of like teen, not rom-com, but like romantic drama. But so this is based on a fan fiction written about Harry Styles, right?
No.
Yeah. You know how 50 Shades of Grey was originally a Twilight fanfic that got popular and got published as a book, and then a film deal? This is the same thing, but replaced Twilight with real-life musician Harry Styles. But that's not even necessarily the problem, strictly speaking, although that's pretty dodgy. It was written... I don't know the author's name off the top of my head, but the author was 24 at the time, and Harry Styles was 17.
That's weird.
Yeah, it's pretty fucked up, really. But so, not only is this, like, let's face it, kind of paedophilic fanfiction exist and popular online.
Yeah.
But then Harry Styles has been, like, asked about this in interviews and spoken out saying, like, he's genuinely really disturbed by the whole concept. And he sort of would rather it didn't exist. So, of course, they make a film deal with it.
Yeah, obviously.
And now...
What's something to replace 60 Shades, isn't it? 60 Shades? There's an extra 10 in there.
It's going to go off in multiples of 10.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that not only do they make a film anyway, but they're making 4 of them. And what annoys me even more is this is like disgustingly popular. Like it is genuinely the most popular film we have in at the moment. It is starting to taper out a bit, but it's been in since September. And it's been like consistently having the most audience members going in. And like I've seen clips of it as well, like when I've done checks. And it's just kind of gross, the things it teaches as well.
Like what? Go on.
So I can't speak for the entire plot, but from the ending of it, spoilers if anyone really cares, but like she is it Tessa? It is Tessa, isn't it? Tessa like finds she meets up with the dude at the party again, and he says something to the effect of like, "Oh yeah, so by the way, that night when you left your phone unguarded, some guy called you on it, and I answered for you and basically told him to fuck off. Sorry, I do this sometimes. I'm just so in love with you, it makes me do these things." And instead of going, "Fuck you, that's a massive invasion of my privacy, maybe I should rethink this whole relationship thing," she goes, "Oh, that's so sweet."
That's terrible.
Cue whimsical music, and he's doing this like smug voiceover, being like, "Oh yes, I thought we had our problems, but I guess things will work out in the end." And there's like a clip of them walking alone at night together, like, I don't know, arm in arm. Some guy comes up to her, doesn't even really do it, just like comes up near her, and he like fucking grabs him, throttles him against the wall, and she's like, "Stop, it's my dad!" And then
Sorry.
I can't make this shit up.
That was really, really fucking unexpected.
Yeah, you're telling me. But then cut to black, and he's just like, "Oh, I guess we've got a way to go," or something. It's like, no, that's not a smug, funny line. That's kind of weird. Why are you glorifying this like really fragile?
Is Harry Styles that psychotic in real life?
No, that's the thing. From what I've seen, the Harry Styles character, I can't remember what he's called, but his name is played by an actor called Hero, which I despise. Maybe, might be a lovely guy, got a terrible name.
Okay.
But yeah, he's really sort of like generally brutish and aggressive, and the whole film, from what I've seen, seems about like Tessa like really likes him, but he's a massive twat and keeps basically abusing her. But in the end, she's like, he's hot though, and comes back.
That's fucked.
I mean, it seems like an awful film, and the fact that so many people are going to see it, and like particularly like it's a 15, but like there's so many girls who are like under 15 try to get into it, and I just hate that this is like this film that's been like actively outcried by the person it is based on, has denounced even, is still being popular and is still being allowed to be made in 2020, and they're going to keep making the other two. It just really annoys me.
Why though? I'll tell you what that sort of reminds me of, to a much lesser extent. But have you ever watched How I Met Your Mother?
I have seen like random episodes of it.
So I watched that. I just did a rewatch of it, and I'm on season 9, which is the last season, and by far the worst season. Right. And it's got its ups and downs. Basically, some of the writing is very good, and some of it is genuinely funny, and there are some bits that make me laugh out loud, which is good. But its inherent like values, like its core values, are so wrong. They're just so bad. And all of the characters, bar like so there's 5 main characters, and 4 out of the 5 of them are like sociopathic. And like they are just horrible people, but presented as the good guys. Whereas, if you compare this to Always Sunny,
I was about to say,
again, 5 characters who are all horrible, terrible people, but have absolutely no qualms in showing that of them being the bad guys. And also, at the end of the day, we've discussed many times, they always lose. Whereas in How I Met Your Mother, these people are fucking awful, but always win. And it's just so bad. Like, they keep fucking cheating on people, and they're like, oh, this is okay because it's love. And it's like, no, it's not. It's really not okay. And it's just bad. It's just really very questionable. But, it's pretty funny. Also, some of it's just so, at the end of each episode, well, not every episode, but at the end of some episodes, particularly like the season finales, they have this like really sappy bit that's like, supposed to be all emotional, but you're like, just shut the fuck up. I don't know. I think you would absolutely despise this show, so don't watch it.
I hadn't planned to, and I'm now not going anywhere near it.
Just don't. I don't think you'd like it at all.
No, from what I saw of it, I was sort of indifferent to.
Yeah, some of it is very good. What I do really like about it is it's very self-referential, but in a good way. There's stuff that happened in season 1 that is still a recurring joke all the way into season 9.
I do like that kind of stuff.
And like that, callbacks between seasons, especially 9 seasons, and it's still funny when you in the 9th season, like that kind of stuff is where the writing is really good and like clever, because they do the callbacks very well. But it's just questionable and bad. Right, shall I start the main event, Nick?
Yeah, let's get on to the our feature presentation. Andrew's been watching the new Netflix series, The Haunting of Bly Manor.
Yes.
And has informed me that he has quite an opinion on it.
Yes, I do.
So without further ado...
So, Nick, The Haunting of Bly Manor...
Yeah.
...is loosely related. So I think The Haunting of is going to be like a series of series.
Yeah, like an interconnected, like sort of.
Well, they're not interconnected. I don't think, at least. I think it's sort of a fuck, what's that? American Horror Story kind of
Yeah,
deal.
okay.
It's got the same actors. I think there's only one. I mean, I don't know. I only watched one episode of the other series because it was that shit. But this, I think, it's got one of the same actresses in it. Anyway, this show is fucking awful, Nick. It's so bad.
So this is the one's based on the Turning of a Screw, isn't it?
Maybe? I don't know.
I think, because of course Haunting of Hill House is based on, I think it's just called The Haunting.
Right.
And now we've gone to Turning of a Screw. So it's all like they're doing like classic gothic horror literature in each series.
But it's fucking awful.
And that ends the review of Haunting of Bly Manor.
Yeah.
So.
No, let me tell you why, right?
Please
So
do.
I've watched 5 episodes or 4 episodes out of... Hold on. I'll tell you out of how many. There's 9 episodes.
9?
Yeah, so I'm about halfway through.
That's a weird amount. You know,
Yeah.
normally 8 or 10.
I don't know. So The Haunting of Hill House was also fucking awful, but for some reason revered and like, oh, this show is excellent, and really, really well written, and it happened to be possibly the worst written show I'd ever seen in my fucking life. To the point where, you know, there's like, look at all these, again, I've only seen like the first episode and then clips and bits from the other series, later in the series. So my main problem with that, which Bly Manor suffers a lot less from, but I'll get back to it, Haunting of Hill House flicks between this is today and this is 20 years ago. And the problem is, all of the characters are alive in the present day, are all of the characters that are in peril in 20 years ago. And they're like, oh, there's lots of spooky ghosts chasing after them. Are they going to die? No. Which is my main issue with it, because the writing is fucking awful, and it's always like, oh, this fucking kid is going to get caught by the ghost. Oh, the ghost is right there. Is it going to get him? No, it's not. It's not going to get him, because I've seen him alive and perfectly well and not killed by a ghost. And the twist end is also not that good. Do you want me to spoil it for you, Nick?
I mean, the likelihood that I'm really going to watch it is quite low. So, but if you haven't watched Haunting of Hill House and haven't been persuaded by Andy's tirade thus far, do skip ahead now.
So basically, there's like this ghost woman who's got like a broken neck or something, and she keeps following the main lady, and in the end, a different spooky ghost catches the main lady and like strangles her and breaks her neck or whatever. And it turns out the spooky broken neck ghost lady was actually the main lady the whole time.
Oh no.
Yep. But trust me, Nick, it's the best written show of the 21st century. I'll tell you that for free.
So why do people like it so much? Do you know what the...
No, I genuinely don't know. I cannot feasibly understand at all why anyone would actually want to watch this show. It is fucking awful. Because you know what else makes it fucking awful? Is that in the modern day, you have all these characters, but they're all fucking wankers. So it's like, oh, when there is a bit of peril in the modern day and they might die because all the spooky ghosts are chasing them and there's no future, so we don't know if they do die or not. It's like, I don't fucking care. In fact, please do catch them and fucking kill them, because they're all fucking awful and annoying and horrible people. Anyway, that's Haunting of Hill House.
I'm reminded of like when you last watched a slasher film and you like Texas Chainsaw, I think it was.
What? No, Texas Chainsaw was fine. They weren't all awful, horrible people.
There was something we reviewed as like either part of Field of Screams, and you were like, "Oh, they're all awful people." And I was like, "Yeah, it's a slasher film." But then I don't think The Haunting is supposed to be a slasher at all, is it? I mean, it predates all that. It's gothic horror. It's ghost stories.
Yeah. There's all like spooky ghosts and shit. Anyway, so Bly Manor is slightly different. So it shows you a bit in the present day. And this old lady's like, "Oh, I'll tell you a ghost story," and it's like 30 years ago or something, and it takes place in the 60s or 70s or something like that. In maybe it's more than 30 years then. I don't know. 60s, 70s, London. Well, England, because it's actually in the countryside.
Ye olde countryside.
What's annoying is, right, it's in the countryside, but everyone's just got like a posh London accent.
Well, yeah, because if you live in London, the first thing you want to do is get away from London.
Well, yeah, I suppose. But, you know, they've got like these two like, the gardener and the cook are supposed to be from Bly, but they just sound like they're from central London. It's like, okay, you gonna try and give them any sort of country twang? No.
Then are the actors all American in this, or have they got British
No,
actors?
I think they are all English.
Oh.
And they've got an English bloke doing a Scottish accent, and it's pretty bad. Not quite as bad as yours, but...
Hey, when I was studying train spotting, there was a good period of time where I could do that Scottish accent very well. I have since lost the ability, but there was a time.
Anyway, so it's like, 30 years ago, I'll tell you this horror story. And it's so there are these kids, and their parents have both died. And then their nanny, so like their au pair or whatever, also died. She like killed herself. So all the kids are like supposed to be all fucked up and stuff. And the main character, she's American, so she comes from America and is like, "Oh, I'll look after these kids because I used to be a teacher and I'm, can do it." And then they hire her, whatever. And then some spooky shit happens in their house. But it doesn't happen, because that's my first problem. This show is cripplingly fucking boring. It's 4 episodes in. The 2 twists, in inverted commas, I saw coming from the first episode. Literally, the first, the twist characters, or the twist about these characters. As soon as those characters came on screen, I predicted the twists very accurately.
Oh, very humble.
Thank you. It's very poorly written. The 2 child actors are horrendously fucking irritating and cannot act. Apologies to them, but they can't.
Andy, you've got such a way with the children, don't you? Your endless love for them is really unrivaled.
Fuck them. But the little girl, she's supposed to be like 7 or 8. She is better than the boy, and I'll get to the boy because he's pretty fucking annoying.
Famous last words before the court case.
She's ends every sentence with "It's perfectly splendid," which makes you
ironically?
No, after like the 6th time you hear it, you want to bash your brains out. And she says it at least 10 times an episode, and it's like, please fucking shut up. She's a bit better because she's supposed, like the classic horror trope of spooky child, spooky young girl.
Yeah, if there's a young girl in a horror film, she's probably responsible for something.
Yeah, she's a bit weird, and she's the only one who can see all the ghosts in the house, so she's a bit weird, and she keeps talking and looking off, and she's quite good at that. But her problem is, she's young. I'm not blaming herself. It's more the writing and direction as well, because obviously there's ways you can get around it. But, it just feels like she's reading off a script the entire time. Do you know what I mean? Like, the director's been like, okay, here's the next page. Can you just read that as woodenly as possible towards the camera, please? Okay, brilliant. Cheers. See you later.
Don't try too hard, do you? You'll tire yourself out.
And then with the boy, who's supposed to be 10 or 11, his acting is so fucking bad. It's just awful. And he's like creepy, but not in the right way. Creepy like I don't know. He's supposed to be this weird little creepy boy, but it's not creepy in the way it wants you to think he's creepy. It's creepy because, I don't know, he's a bit of a pervert. So, spoilers, if you ever do want to watch it. But I'm just going to spoil it anyway.
Yeah.
And this hasn't been resolved where I am in the series yet, but it's another prediction. He's been being haunted or possessed or whatever by one of the characters who's like this proper asshole, like an abusive boyfriend type. They think he's showing up, but he's actually haunting the place because he's a ghost, and he's obviously haunting the boy because the boy keeps being a prick, and it's like, whatever. Anyway, whereas the bloke who's playing the abusive boyfriend guy, do you remember in The Invisible Man?
Yeah.
The guy who played the abusive boyfriend in that?
Yes.
He's been typecast.
Oh, is it him again?
It's the same bloke, yeah, same actor. Right. But whereas he's really good at it because he's very good at being like the intimidating, because he's this tall, very muscular.
Yeah, he's got the physique for it.
Yeah,
for intimidation.
The 10-year-old boy doesn't have that, and he just looks a complete tit when he says all these fucking like macho things. It's like, just shut the fuck up. Also, there's a character in it you never see eat or drink, and it's like, it's really obvious that she is a ghost.
Oh, I thought you were my first thought was like, are they one of the robots from Artificial Intelligence?
No, was obviously she's a ghost because there's a bit where they're in this like chapel. She's like, oh, I light a candle for all the dead people. And we only know about 3 dead people, but there's 4 candles. Oh, that was supposed to be the X-File thing, by the way. And it's just, fucking obvious that she's a spooky ghost. It's just really, 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 really dull. And very, very poorly written, and it's somehow still like a 8.8 on IMDb, and it's just fucking bad, and I just don't understand why anyone likes it.
So does anything happen at all in it so far? Like, is there any actual action or plot, or is it literally just people sort of doing stuff?
So the main character, the American lady, she's got like PTSD because her ex-boyfriend died. He's got these like spooky lamp eyes because he's got these glasses and they are yellow and the rest of him's like dark, and it's like, oh, he got hit by a car then. And then, in the flashback episode, it shows him getting hit by a car, and it's like, yep.
Checks out.
Called it. Anyway, but that's another thing, right? That episode annoyed me because she's obviously like a really big part of her character is that she's got this PTSD from the dead boyfriend, and that's why she moved away from America, because she didn't want to be around there anymore. And then it showed you the episode where he died, and it wasn't that traumatic. But also she's supposed to feel guilty because she killed him, in inverted commas, because they had an argument and he got out of the car and then fucking died. But I don't. Again, I'm just going to blame the writing, but it's written in such a way that it just doesn't feel like it's her fault at all, and that she just shouldn't be guilty. She was just like, yeah, it's not working out. I'm gonna break up with you, and he's like, oh, fuck you. He gets out of the car and he fucking dies.
But then isn't that the way of guilt, that sometimes you feel guilty about things that weren't your fault?
Yes, if it were written better than a 10-year-old's fan fiction, then yeah, sure, but it's not.
So how would you do it differently? That's the question.
I don't know. Make it make it her shouting fuck off at him. Make it so it's not like, oh, he's just being a twat and gets out and then happens to die. Make it so that, she's shouting at him or something. Make it more her fault than just she's like, oh yeah, it's not working out, see you, bye. And he's like, oh, all right then, fuck you, get out of the car and just dies. Make it have some fucking drama, some impact, something, rather than just a cheap jump scare as he gets hit by a car.
Yeah.
Yep. It's just not good.
No, wouldn't recommend.
Just absolutely not. But I want, if anyone actually does like this series and wants to tell me why it's good, then please do, because it's fucking horrendous.
Well, that's what's sort of just going to come on to. Like, have you read many, like, positive reviews for it? And, like, sort of seen the viewpoints on the other side?
So, well, I've obviously seen the ratings on IMDb, but also one of the ladies I work with, she said she'd seen it, and she was like, oh, it was really good. And I was like, oh, so why did you think it was good? Because I thought it was rubbish. And she was like, oh, just it really scared me. And I was like, what I like from a horror series is it to be all spooky and like, dramatic like that. And I was like, why? Because it's not scary at all. There is no tension. There's nothing. Nothing is fucking happening. It was like, oh yeah, there's some muddy footprints. Oh, and there's also a spooky, like, plague doctor man who's in the background of a couple of sharks. And it's like, okay, why do we care at all?
See, I was wondering about, like, is there a case that, the absolute, like, mainstream kind of audience users of Netflix just aren't used to horror enough that something like this is scaring them? But then, I don't think that is a case, because the horror is probably more mainstream now than it has been before, than it ever was before. Like, so many people, certainly of our generation, are, like, just casually into horror and stuff.
Yeah.
And those are same people seem to like the Haunting series. So, I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen them, so I can't really judge precisely what it is that draws people to them.
I don't know if it's just me, because I seem to be the only person who hates them. I've spoken to friends of ours, mutual friends of ours, who I know, well, actually that's very questionable what I was about to say, so don't worry. I was going to say, has good taste in films, but it's Matt.
Oh, that's some say.
Who likes Suburban Sasquatch, so...
Hey, that's an ironic purchase, I think.
Well, is it?
Went for a lot of effort for it.
And he said he thought it was alright. And I was like, how? It's just not. It's not good.
What does Georgia think of it?
She really liked Haunting of Hill House. And she thinks Bly Manor is okay. Like, not as good.
Does she share your criticisms of it? Or has she got different
She definitely
gripes?
thinks it's boring. And she hates the kids as well. But I think the thing is, I think you're supposed to hate the kids. But I think I hate the kids for the wrong reason.
Yeah, my limited understanding of the story of Turning of the Screw is that the kids are like the antagonists, like they are the evil presence. So I think I don't think you're necessarily supposed to sympathise with them. But the thing is, I know you don't like children anyway, so I think that's just taken a whole.
But the thing is, right, what I find myself doing, I'm also watching Stranger Things at the moment, and I don't hate the kids in that.
But the kids in that are the protagonists, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're not. Is that the difference?
The other thing, what I think is, again, the writing in Bly Manor, is that those, and again, I know what you're going to say, it's because they're the antagonists or whatever, but they just don't, even when they're not haunted or possessed or whatever, they just don't behave like actual real-life human beings. They behave like, they're reading a script. Reading stage directions. They just don't. No child actually speaks like that. And I think what Stranger Things absolutely nailed is the kids in that behave like actual children. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And whereas in this just like, it's so unbelievable because like no fucking 10-year-old boy behaves like that or speaks like that or does anything like that.
See, I'm going to respond to this in the way you think I will, but I'm going to add some nuance to it.
Go on.
What you've told me about the way the kids sort of do, or at least the girl sort of delivers her lines very woodenly and flatly, I think it is bad direction, but I don't think you're giving it enough credit in that. I think, Because again, my understanding of the story is the kids are like possessed, certainly.
Yeah.
So
Which is, again,
I think they
obvious.
tried to make the girl creepy, and the idea of making her deliver lines in a possessed way, in a way that a young girl could pull off with limited acting experience, would be to just basically deliver lines really kind of coldly. And then that's
Yeah.
through bad direction that's come off as just reading off a script as opposed to like sort of flat, emotionless sort of, pod people kind of speak. So that, I
I
mean,
don't know.
I've not seen it, but that's my theory based on what you've told me.
I mean, I know it's so bad that it feels like it's on purpose. Like, as in, like, yeah, no kid speaks like that, so it's got to be on purpose. Yeah. But it's just executed so poorly that it's like just just really bad and hard to watch.
So with the all the recent stuff about Netflix cancelling things after 2 seasons, despite how popular it might be, do you reckon Haunting's gonna get cancelled after Bly Manor?
No, I don't think it will, because it's massively popular. It's massively high rated. It's, well, I don't know, that doesn't stop other things.
Well,
but also,
exactly.
It must be very, very cheap to make, because it's all set in one location. There's no CGI on the ghosts, or not really, because it's just people dressed up. In the first series, they had a guy like always hovering off the ground, but that's not impossible to achieve.
You can do that on mirrors.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Or just force perspective.
I just think it's so. Saying that, actually, the Haunting of Hill House had some of the worst CGI I've ever seen in my life, though.
Maybe because the budget's so low.
Yeah,
they can only afford like
limited.
Because
I imagine it must have a low budget. Well, or at least if it's got a high budget, it's gone on weird things, because it cannot be that expensive to film or make.
All right, crew, let's break for lunch. It's caviar again today. We've got to get through the whole tub, so feel free to grab a lobster to sort of help scoop it up with, mop it up,
So that's Bly Manor. Shit, don't watch it.
I think that's 2 thumbs down from Andrew Jones.
Yeah.
See, what's going to happen now is I'm going to go away and end up watching them and come back and tell you why you're wrong.
Well, yeah, you're welcome to. I want to understand why people think it's good, because it's not.
Well, maybe. Okay. I mean, since it's Halloween, we're still coming to the end of the episode. Let's talk about the horror genre, because we've done these sort of Field of Screams and stuff now. And what is your current opinion of the horror genre? Do you think you like it as a genre, or
it's not my go-to? I have to really force myself to watch a horror film or series or whatever, because I would rather watch basically any other genre.
Right.
And I don't know whether that's just personal. I have this aversion to seeing horror films just because. And I wouldn't have watched any of the horror films you've told me to watch unless we were doing this.
Yeah.
However,
Wily Midsummer pretending to not be a horror film to you somehow, you end up watching it.
However, it's definitely a genre of mountainous peaks and the fucking pits of hell troughs.
I think that's fair.
It's got some of the best films I've ever seen, aka Midsummer, and some of the absolute fucking worst films I've ever seen. So, I don't know. There's The Haunting of Hill House. It's not a film, but there you go.
Yeah, it's a long film.
It's so hit and miss, because obviously fear is very, very subjective, as is comedy. And I would say the same thing for comedy. It's very interesting how similar they are as genres, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just very interesting to me that, I don't know, like some horror films I'm like, shit, yes, this is really, really good. And then others I'm just like, I'd rather watch my toenails grow. And most of the time I don't like horror. if someone said, "Oh, come on, let's go and watch this horror film," I'd be like, "Oh, fuck's sake."
Yeah, I can attest to that.
And then I would go into it, yeah. And then I'd go into it being like, I'm going to hate this. And then it takes a very, very, very good horror film to convince me otherwise. Because I know what I like, and I don't like horror tropes, but in particular, just get on my tits, because they're fucking stupid.
So I presume you're not into slasher films then, which are like famously very trope based.
Well, the thing is, slasher films are different, I think, because they are definitely different from a horror film. Like, Texas Chainsaw Massacre was fine. I didn't mind that at all. It was okay because it's a slasher film. At the end of the day, you are just watching a supernatural villain chase after the good guys. So I Texas Chainsaw Massacre was good. I enjoyed it, but that's because despite it setting up all of the future tropes, like I said, it's like a caricature of itself. I still it's not necessarily a bad thing. And slasher films are fine, I think, mostly because it's not really about... It's more about, just... This is going to sound weird. It's more about just having a good time watching some guy murder some people.
I think slashers are sort of... I know what you mean, like they're more laid back in their horror, because it's like almost like a more obvious horror, while as opposed to something like Midsommar gets much more psychological. It's a more sort of stressful horror.
But also slasher films don't tend to try too hard. They know what they are. It's like, in Jason.
Friday the 13th.
Yeah. You're just going in to watch him chase after what's her face with a knife. Or Freddy Krueger. Friday... Is that not...
Nightmare on Elm Street.
That's the guy. You're just watching him murder teenagers. That's fine.
Yeah.
But, that's almost safe in its tropes because
slashers,
it's just...
They're almost like the blockbusters of the horror genre in a way. Like they're sort of they're formulaic, but they're sort of like almost like popcorn films. You can just sort of get through, and what you're going to get, and it's just sort of simple, clean. Well, not clean, but simple entertainment.
Yeah, I mean, then that's fine. But when it's something that's actively trying to scare you, not trying to be like, oh, this is just a good time. It's like, we're going to actively try to scare you, but we're going to use cheap jump scares. We're going to have the characters be so incredibly dense that the only way they would ever get into this situation is because they're that fucking stupid. Just stuff like that just gets under my skin. It's just like, ugh, I hate this. Because if this were any other genre of film, these characters would not be in this position. And it just gets on my tits. It just annoys me. And it just prevents me from enjoying the film. But the other thing is, I think the horror films that I then have enjoyed are like Midsommar, because I went in being like, oh, this is going to be shit. And then when it twisted my brain around and made me feel so uncomfortable I couldn't bear it, then I was like, well, fuck me, that's the greatest horror film I've ever seen, because it did that.
Yeah, it's just interesting considering how I think the thing with horror is, and you sort of touched on it when you're talking about comedy as well, because it applies to both of them, that the horror and comedy are two of the easiest genres of film to make, which means on the one hand, it's easy for anyone to have a go at it. I mean, you get some things that are absolutely terrible, but also absolutely fantastic. And I think it's because they're so sort of, on a basic level, quite easy to make something scary or funny. Like anyone can tell a joke, whether it's a good joke.
Yeah.
It's a whole art form. Same with scaring someone, which is why you get such utter schlock. But also from the absolute masters, you get stuff like Midsommar or Alien or a Lighthouse. You need to see the Lighthouse.
Also, it's about execution as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Quite literally in Midsommar. It's about how they go about it and, pull that horror off in a way that keeps you invested and keeps you interested in a way that could happen in real life, and how characters or how people would actually genuinely react to things as well. That's what gets me, like, when in a whatever film, we're in this spooky haunted house, let's all split up and make it really easy for the killer to pick us off one by one.
Have you seen Scream?
I've seen the TV show Scream.
Oh, okay, because the film Scream, famously, it's a slasher film, but where the characters are very much aware of the tropes of the slasher film.
Yeah.
And basically get killed off for not following the rules. So it'd be interesting to see what you'd make of that then. Where they specifically reference to be like, don't go off on your own, because that's how they always die. If you want to stay alive, stay together. Similar to Cabin in the Woods, does something a lot different, but is sort of in a similar kind of vein of that sort of meta self-awareness of the genre. So maybe it's worth trying those out on Field of Screams.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we'll call it there for this week's episode. You've been listening to the Ciné Rambles podcast with Nick
and Andrew.
You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/CinéRamblesOfficial.
Oh, and something about Twitter.
Do you want to try that again?
Follow us on Twitter at Ciné Rambles.
Yeah, that's it.
You have to keep all of that in, Nick.
Yeah, I will. And you can read the blog for more content at cinerambles.blogspot.com.
Have you mentioned the email?
No, but would you like to mention the email?
Sure. Please email in at cinerambles@gmail.com.
So, Andy, got any final closing remarks on our totally spooky episode of Ciné Rambles?
Don't get got by the spooky ghost, but it's okay because you're alive 30 years in the future. That's terrible. I fucked my life. So's the series.
Goodbye.
Okay, bye.